Hi, welcome back. It's Tuesday, July 9th, and I am, got a shaky computer. I'm here to do the favorite books of the year so far video that some people have been doing. Like kind of a mix between like a mid-year check-in and also just like making a list of favorite books already. uh, Katie James, Sophie. I'll put all the links to the cute babes in the downstairs for you guys to go watch. The book people of the internet have decided that I need to have another anxiety attack. In addition to the video of favorite books of the year, now we have to do it twice. Thank you. I already know I'm going to struggle to talk about each book in depth, so I might just not. I'll give like little brief things, but I'll just get frustrated if I try to do like really thorough short reviews. I'm just like not one of those people. I'm not succinct in my thoughts in that way. Is this really bothering you how shaky this is? Because everyone's doing it, I'll go through my stats for a second, but I'll try to be really fast. And anyway, it's probably like not the most interesting part for you to see. Main moods were reflective, emotional, dark, sad, mysterious, tense, challenging, all makes sense, funny, and adventurous. What is funny? It says Rent Boy by Gary Indiana is funny. I would say the fucking opposite. That book is not funny. Adventurous. What do we have under adventurous? Oh, the first book that I want to talk about, which I kind of understand now why it is categorized as such. My pace was 53% medium, 32% fast, 16% slow. That's interesting because I usually prefer slow books, but maybe this reading year for me in general has been pretty low. I've read 24 books this year, but I've just been amidst like so many really insane life changes. So it makes sense that I'm reading less, and I guess maybe I'm preferring things that move just a little bit faster than normal. 92% pages under 300, 8% over. Yeah, we much prefer a short book on this corner, in this corner. 86% fiction, 14% nonfiction. Biggest genre was literary or contemporary, like the first five: literary, contemporary, LGBTQIA+, essays, art. Sounds right. Most read author was Olga Raun. Doesn't surprise me. I guess I've read 2 books of hers this year, and most of the time I don't read like a lot of the same author all at once. So yeah, but Olga Raun for sure. Yeah, okay, so let's move on. Let's go to number 1. First one I wrote down is Eastbound by Melis de Kerangal. Until further notice, I figure out how to say her name. That's what I'm gonna say. And this is a really great short novella that I really enjoyed at the beginning of the year. About 2 characters on a train, on a Trans-Siberian train, one being kind of like an high society woman, if I remember correctly, and one being a really young man who is being like kind of trained off to war, and he's trying to get out of it, and they meet each other and kind of have this like super suspenseful sort of what's it called, like little train romance, and I just thought it was super fun, and I really enjoyed my reading experience of that, so that's on here. Second, I have here, you've heard me speak about it at length, My Work by Olga Raun. This was just an amazing book that she wrote about motherhood, the experience of motherhood. It's very honest. It's very, very raw. And just like how anxiety is like engulfing this young mother. And this work does does so many things. Like it has like diary entries, like daily activities of the mother, and then like poetry. It even reads as like a play at a certain point. And just like has, yeah, so much in it. Like the form is so great. I was just blown away by this book. And I think Olga Raun is fucking amazing. Yeah, you should definitely read this if you're interested in like a very mercilessly honest portrayal of motherhood, and you want it to do some interesting things with form. And also, like, yeah, she splits herself into like two people in this book, because this is based on like Olga's experience of being a mother. In order to like create this book, she needed to like create a protagonist that she could kind of like use to distance herself from herself. So there's like two people, two mothers in this book. A banger, an absolute banger. Like one of my favorite books of this year for sure. Really must show you this dog. Oh. Oh. Okay, on the subject of Olga Raun, The Employees, a 21st century workplace novel, I think is what it's called as well in its full title. Short book about productivity and the workplace, and takes place on a spaceship between human employees and non-human, like humanoid employees, and their like statements, like their personal accounts of each employee in relation to these objects that have been collected and put onto the spaceship, and how those objects affect them, and what goes down between non-human and human species together in one workspace. And this is just, yeah, the most else. I've just talked about it so much, but it's absolutely brilliant and very poetic and imagery heavy, and just like exactly the kind of thing that I like. So those two are big ones for me. Next one I've got on here is one that I haven't shared, I think, on this channel yet. This is Still Life with Oysters and Lemon by Mark Doty. I got this at one of my favorite bookshops in New York in the West Village, Three Lives and Company. And this is a book about art, and it's in the art kind of criticism area of the bookstore. Mark Doty is a really beautiful writer. It's been a while since I've read this, but like the amount that I wrote in it and underlined it, it's basically there's one specific Flemish still life painting that kind of like is used as the basis for Mark Doty to talk about art. And what is it? The full title is Still Life with Oysters and Lemon on Objects and Intimacy. So it's a lot about intimacy, a lot about art and the act of seeing, and what is aliveness, especially like fruit in for example, a Flemish still life painting, and how much we have attachment to like ordinary things. It also speaks a bit about his relationship with his partner, who I think he eventually passes away. So like dealing with objects of loved ones who have passed, and grief. It was more like in the grief arena than I thought it would be when I first picked it up, but then like it met me just in a really good time. And I just think if you like writing about art but you want it to be and feel very personal, then I would say this one is definitely one you should look into. Next, Wound by Oksana Vasyakina. This is a book about a young Russian queer poet, and she is on a journey back to her hometown in Siberia to bury her mother's ashes, or to do something with the ashes there. And it's very poetic, like Oksana, I assume, is a poet herself, and the character is a poet, so there's a lot of poetry woven into the book, which I normally like. I guess sometimes can be a bit too much for people. And in this one, I remembered it just being really well done and super beautiful. And like another grief book, there's quite a lot of grief books in my last in this year for me. But this was like a really deeply moving one. Like it did make me cry. Yeah, if you're interested in mother-daughter relationships, queerness, sexuality, death, art, then yeah, you would probably enjoy this one. There's one specific passage that I remember of like turbulence on an airplane and like knowing that she's like has her mother's ashes like in an urn on this plane, and there being like heavy turbulence and like the tension in that scene was so palpable and just a really good one. So this is a really beautiful novel. I haven't, it's like a little bit foggy in my memory because I read it in the beginning of the year, but it's really good. Another one I don't know if I've talked about on here yet, because I was not very good with my wrap-ups this year. I'm trying to get back into them. But Tides by Sarah Freeman. This book, really loved this book. I was like deeply touched and like shook and affected by Tides by Sarah Freeman. I read this, I think, solely on like literary Iggy, my sister Ignacia, telling me that you like that I had to read this book, and she was raving about it, and just from the way that she spoke about it, I think I might have seen Eric Carl Anderson also talking about Tides, and yeah, I eventually just got it like a library thing on my Kindle, and I'm like don't have good posture. And read it while I was working in France, in Lyon, and that was kind of like my morning coffee book or like my Saturday coffee book. And it was just so moving, and it's about a woman who, if I remember correctly, she loses a son or daughter, like she loses a child, and it makes her ability to be in her marriage like it's no longer possible for her, and she basically walks out on her life and is dealing with like a massive amount of grief and starts like working in some kind of seaside town, and developing relationships there, but mostly just kind of becoming sort of like homeless and really just being completely lost and wandering and trying to find herself. And it's really touching and really moving. And I was like working by myself in France, and I was dealing with large amounts of grief at the time, and it just like really spoke to me. Yeah, it's quite raw as well and very dark, but so good. Like if you haven't read Tides by Sarah Freeman, I really, really, really urge you to. It's fragmentary in style, which I always love, and yeah, it just really like, and sometimes like certain, I don't know, like the fragmentary form can either like really go deep inside me emotionally or make me feel quite disconnected, and because of like the kind of short snippets that the books exist in sometimes, but as with like Jenny Awful, Department of Speculation, that moved me deeply. Like I cried from that book as well. Tides definitely like packs like a punch inside that form. Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout. This was just a fun, good reading experience. I made a video about this. This was sent to me by Random House. Great novel with like multiple characters who you all kind of are fascinated by, in this small town in Maine. It's also kind of a literary thriller because there's a crime that's been committed in this small town and everybody knows each other, and you're following like the sheriff and Also, like an array of characters from Elizabeth Strout's other books, like Lucy Barton, Olive Kittredge. So, yeah, if you're a fan of Elizabeth Strout, I think that you'll enjoy the kind of like convergence of many of her characters in this book. And I just thought it was like a really beautifully written, like small town mystery in that, like, if that makes sense. And I really, yeah, I just liked it a lot, and I really enjoy it. Like, it was warm. She always makes me feel very warm. Her writing is very warm. One to break your brain is any book by Clarice Lispector. This one is The Hour of the Star. It's the only Lispector that I've read this year. I need to be doing more of that. And yeah, I just thought that this was, as with every book of hers, so singular. And like, out of the list, people who have read all of her work, I don't know where they'd place The Hour of the Star is on their kind of like, you know, review of her oeuvre. But like, through my 25 books or whatever that I read this year so far, like, of course, Alice Spector is going to jump out as something super singular. Also, this cover, glossy, gorgeous, New Directions cover. I'll just read you the very, very short blurb. Lispector's The Hour of the Star tells the haunting story of Macabea, an underfed, unattractive, and unloved typist who lives in the slums of Rio. Yet for all her outward misery, Macabea is inwardly free. She doesn't seem to know how unhappy she should be. So yeah, definitely about, like, deals with like society, kind of class system, and privilege, specifically in Rio and neighborhoods around Rio in Brazil, and is written, or is told, like, through this other character who is like viewing her and trying to write the book about her. That's the book you're reading, is the book that's trying to be written, and kind of like never gets to the point. And it's I will like point you towards Sophie from Biblio Sophie and Nathan from Nathan's Nook. I'll point you to those two people to speak about anything Clarice Lispector related. I would not take on that responsibility on myself, right? I cannot on this day. So I'll check to see if either of them have spoken about this one specifically, and I'll try to link it below. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the voyeuristic element of this book, of like one character kind of writing about a character that's being viewed and doesn't really like have a voice, I find really compelling and really interesting. And I like that like voyeuristic element. Clarice Lispector's books are right for like maybe rereads like as many possible times as you could in your life, to just like chew on for many years. Battery's dying on the computer, so let's wrap it up. The hearing test, Eliza Barry Callahan. I thought that I had this, but I realized my friend that I lent it to still has it. This is a great new release novel about a character who has like sudden onset hearing loss, and she starts to have really weird things with her hearing, and her hearing starts to go. And she's also a musician. She writes scores for like films and things. And yeah, it's a really beautiful book that kind of like chronicles just like her days, and inside her thoughts and her reflections on her hearing loss and what that means in seeing, and what that means in silence, and the weight of silence that changes in her life, and her like little relationships with people as she's going through this, and also like treatments she's going through for the hearing loss. So yeah, it's very like clean language, quite like pared back, and I really enjoyed it. Like, it was a book that I finished, and I thought like, I think I said this in a previous video, like I would probably point that to anyone who's like asking me for like, oh, I want to get into kind of literary fiction, and I want a book that's like very your taste, but like I don't read like maybe like they don't feel like they want to read a Cusk or a Lispector or something like that. Like I would say the Hearing Test is a great book for like many kinds of readers, but still like very much in the way in the use of language that I like specifically. This little book, which is a book of poetry that I recently spoke about, the new book, A Book of Torture by Michael McClure. He's one of the beat poets. And I just found like I just had like a crazy time reading this. And it's so full of like explosive imagery. And this was written on like psychedelics in the 60s. So it is very dark, very weird, very like hallucinogenic. And I just thought like that, yeah, I was just really, I feel like I'm doing this because I see him on this side. He is like a new discovery for me in poetry that I like. I always kind of have poets that I go back to, and like I like to pick up poetry just by the way when I see it around or in stores or like on $2 carts or something like that. I don't need to know the poet to buy the book. I do that the most with poetry, probably out of any of my other, kinds of books that I read. But this one, but like I always kind of stick to like, I still have my core group of poets that I like really love reading and going to for various different things. And like I was just really happy to have him added to that list because I feel something very wild and feral about his writing, especially in this collection. I think we're to the last one. Practice by Rosalind Brown. I just spoke about this in my June wrap up, so I won't repeat myself too much. You're welcome to watch that video. But it's basically covering one day from the morning to the evening of our main character, who is an Oxford student for English, and she needs to write an essay on the sonnets of Shakespeare. And so this book is really just like chronicling every moment from the moment she wakes up to the moment she goes to sleep, attempting to write this essay and having like a really hard time and being like flooded with like intrusive thoughts and like ways to kind of procrastinate. And also a lot of those fantasies are quite like erotic, so like eroticism and like feelings of the body, and then the life of the mind, like intellectual and like craving sex, for lack of a better way to put it, like, and those kind of things crashing into each other in this book. And I like the book similar to like The Hour of the Star, where like the narrator keeps saying like, okay, but I'm finally gonna start this book. Now I'm gonna start this book. I had to say all of those things to you, but now I'm gonna start this book, and it like kind of never starts. And it's sort of something similar in Practice, because she like doesn't get to writing the essay, like she's gonna sit down and write it, and then like some other things flood her brain, and it's just like really to be inside a narrator's brain. And I thought that was really great, and I'm curious about Rosalind Brown now very much. And my honorable mention is that I'm currently reading If Only by Vigdis Hjorth, and I'm really enjoying it. But I haven't finished it yet, so I can't put it in the list, but I can say it's adjacent to the list, because so far I've really been having fun with this like incredibly messy novel. But I'm doing a vlog on it now, so hopefully that will come out soon once I finish it. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Let me know what your favorite books of 2024 were so far. If you had one that you wanted me to read this year before the end of the year, what would it be? Maybe give me like your top one or two, and I'll try to get to them. Okay, we have to cover that. That is just so horribly ugly. I won't be in this apartment very much longer, but it's an eyesore. All right. Gonna get back to stuff that I need to do. I've been having some knee issues, which I've said in a past video, and I need to wrap this up and get in an Uber to a clinic and have someone look at it. So, yeah, anyway, thanks so much for watching. Bye. Happy mid-year. I hope it's going well for you.